Amadu upon Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. The blessing of the feast of dedication. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Asherah, Athalanawa, Kag, Chaanakah, Bashalawam, Towada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, that gives to us the feast of dedication and peace. Thank you, so be it. Taha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayanyam Ya O Hahayim Mayan Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Mayahawa Shaisha Shamayim Warataza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawum Shashamarka Hana La'a Yanawum Wala'a Yayashun Shashuma Yasharala Yahweh Shamaya Yahweh Tazalia Ayam Yad Yan Yan Ya Yawamam Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wayarat La'a Balayala Yahweh Yashamaya Mako Ra Yashamar Napasha Yahweh Yashamar Hawalakia Wabuaya Ma'itha Wa'ai Iwalam Basham Yahweh Shah Towada Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Shema Yashrela, hail Israel. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malak with Ka, Baba'ah, Ratazawanka, Hayah, Aisha, Barataza, Ka, Bashemayim, Delanawa, Lakam, Yawum, Salat. Za, Wasalak Nawa, Kabawat Nawa, Kasalak Nawa, Kabawat Yanawa, Wala Abiyah Nawa, O, Nasaiwan, Abo, Hawashai Nawa, Marai, Kaya, Laka, Malakwa, Wa'ala, Watapara, La'ulam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, or we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I Sharamatize the Ten Commandments. La'a, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya, La'a, Daisha, Laka, Hasol, Wala'a, Daibadam, La'a, Dalakwaka, Shumwa, Yahweh, Alhayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Hayawam, Hashabath, Lakodashwa, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amakai, La'a, Taratazak, La'a, Tana'a, La'a, Thagana, La'a, Thaina, Shakur, La'a, Thakama, Ko, Ashura, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Exodus 28:3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gate. For in 6 that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Aman. Shabbat, I'll be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashtarah, Nathan Lanawa, Parya, Gapin, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are ye, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. A model upon you on Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem for the open prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakawam, Abiyah, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Sho, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wako, Jabarium, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiyat, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapala, Yawaitazah, Yahabashai, Zakar Nawa, Yahweh, Barataza 1, Aimka, Yasha'Allah, Izar Nawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'Allah, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawumyum, Makwadam, Baba Kusha, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahataza Wadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Al Nawa, Ba'aikwor, Shalak, Haroaka, Shal, Yahushai, Lanawa, Balamanawa, Rabium, Hakama, Tabawana, Wada'ai, Shal, Dabarka. Bahasham, Yahushai, Thawada, from Yad, Wawalam, Aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahushai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahushua to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahushua, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Ethanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Ethanawa, Awar, Lara Awa. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Ethanawa, Koran, Hayyo, La Korah, Ha'ain, Yeshabwa. Be seated. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
All praise to the Most High, while Yahushua for allowing us to come together on the 8th day to celebrate the feast of the dedication of the altar, the closing service. I'm going to give salutations to the brothers and sisters, those that's going to be listening on the teleconference line, those going to be watching on the live stream, all those throughout the four corners that's celebrating on this evening or this weekend, one day before or after, depending on when you observe the new moon. We give all salutations out to those brothers and sisters laboring in this truth as well. This is Hayah Sharala Kanas, here located in Germantown, PA, or Germantown Avenue in Philadelphia, PA, where we teach the Most High's word found throughout the Bible, the Holy King James Version Bible that aligns with the Hebrew and Greek text to the best of its ability based on the translations. And we go in there and we find the laws, statutes, and commandments that pertain to our ceremonial days, hence why we're keeping tonight as a 8th-day service, dietary laws as far as for our consumption of food, moral and civil laws that goes into our behaviors, dealing with, civil matters, or how we deal with one another as brothers and sisters, and how we act and conduct ourselves out in the world amongst the heathen. Fruits of the Spirit, the things that we need to keep ourselves enduring in these last days as we strive to keep the law, patience, virtues, temperance, joy, all of these different types of emotions that we now have to learn while we're trying to strive to keeping these laws, binds us to keeping the Most High's will, right? So you read throughout the scriptures, or we usually go through the Bible, try to go through with intensity to make sure we uncover every stone, don't leave anything uncovered, to bring out all the historical facts, prophecies, testimonies, and such the like. So that's one of the main charters here, Hayashra Kanaz, which means a congregation of Israel, the gathering of the nation of Israel. So I'll give a salutation to Lab Tawab and his wife Emma Shivers, as well as all those who are going to be dialing in or logging on soon. I mean, normally we start around 9 o'clock, 9:30. Let that go by. But we started a little bit earlier today. Sun sets a little early here on a Sabbath day in the winter time, soon to be winter. So we wanted to start a little early, give us some time to go through a little bit more if we need to, as well as the breaking of bread. So we're going to be finishing up on the second half of what Kahanabiyah touched on last week, going into detail the history as far as for the Greeks coming into power, taking down the Persians, right? We read that in the first chapter, how Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, came into power swiftly and went and took down the Persians. And then after his taking down of those Persians, he fell sick and was about to die. And he's parted his kingdom into different friends of his that grew up. When you read the history, it wasn't an immediate transition of what we now know today as the four main ruling empire, or the four main ruling quarters based off his kingdom. There was a lot of different people who stood up to take the position of taking rulership over certain sections. And there was some infightings, and then we get to the point where we have the four dynasties that stood up and maintained their stead throughout history. The Bible focuses on how that mainly dealt with the nation of Israel, and how when the Greeks came in, you had some of our people who were traitors to the Lord, right? I'll say to the Lord first, because we made an agreement, a covenant with the Most High, that we would be his people and that we would keep his laws, statutes, and commandments, and that he would be a God to us and will be a protector, defender, and a fighter for us against our enemies. But when the Greeks came in, you had some of our people that aligned themselves to the Greek customs and culture, aligned themselves to the king, whether it be for position or what have you. But that's what they did, and started building up gymnasiums and started, caring about after the fashion of the Greeks. And the Bible tells you in First Maccabees, the first chapter, that they made themselves uncircumcised, meaning you're supposed to circumcise the foreskin of your heart, but they went and uncircumcised themselves, meaning they went back on the Most High's law and went back into the customs of the heathen, right? And then after a while, the dissension really started with them coming in and defiling the temple, setting up abominations of desolation, meaning they began to offer up sacrifices in the temple on the altar that were unclean animals, specifically swine's flesh and others alike, on top of the altar that was dedicated to the Most High. We went into this last night as far as for when the Most High gave the law as it pertains to how we would worship and offer offerings and sacrifices. The altars were something that the Most High told us that we had to erect and what things needed to be offered on top of them, right? And that's found in the law that you read from the times of Exodus to Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and then you see testimonies of those things happening throughout different periods. Well, when the Greeks came in, they went and built an altar on top of it and then started offering up these abominable animals, right? And desecrated and defiled the temple. More so, our people
were defiled as well spiritually, because you had some of our people who went and aligned themselves and participated in these acts, right? But then you had one of the Most High's elitists, Mattathias, who stood up, one of the priests from out of the Levites. He stood up to defend the Most High's name, defend the honor of being called an Israelite, and went and fought and tried to rid out evil, wickedness from amongst his people. And then it got to a point where they couldn't even dwell in the land anymore. They had to go flee and went up into the mountains. But they still stood tall. They started to, align themselves, or people started to gravitate towards Mattathias and his family. You read about the Assyrians coming in and aligning themselves with them. Another group that had the same beliefs, had the same zealousness to want to stand and defend the Most High and his will. Over time, Mattathias grew old, and he began to call his sons together and begin to now set things in alignment after his transition. Which son was going to do this? One son was going to defend the people, which is Judas, and then you was going to have others who are going to have other different roles, right? We're focusing on Judas because he's going to now lead us through a lot of the portions when you read in First Maccabees, as well as even Second Maccabees. But his brothers, after his transition, also stepped up and then took the mantle, right? So we're going to go and read the second half of what we started last week. So somebody find me that precept. I think it's in Nehemiah. I believe it's in Nehemiah. The Lord speaks about raising up saviors. Is that it? Is that in Nehemiah?
Chapter 13.
Right. So we're going to be reading First Maccabees chapter 3.
9 and 27.
But I wanted to read this precept first in Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 27 throughout. Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 27. I'm going to touch on something that the brother Mark mentioned last night. So this is Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 27. It says, therefore thou deliverest them into the hand of their enemies who vexed them. And in the time of their trouble, when they cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven. And according to thy manifold mercies, thou gavest them saviors who saved them out of the hand of their enemies, right? So these saviors would be like those who was of the times of the judges, right? You had a lot of saviors during the times of the judges. Those saviors would be like a Judith, right? Where the Most High used certain people, man or woman, to go and help Israel against their enemies, right? So this is a lowercase s in here because we know who the true savior is Yahweh Shah. But you had other ones that would also step up prior to and even after Yahweh Shah until he returns and gives us the ultimate salvation, right? So that's Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 27. Mattathias could be looked at as a type of a savior for what he did, right, in his time. So now
I'm thinking about Will's fair kind of savior thing.
saviors that can. So we're going to read First Maccabees chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 1. Again, salutations out to Yahweh Kananzon, and I see Aqua, a warrior. There's others I see are dialing in. Shalom, shalom. Again, Chaanakah, Chaanakah, happy feast of dedication, the closing. All right, so this is First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1. It said, then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, right? The his is Mattathias. Judas, called Maccabeus, or the nickname the Hammer, right? The Hammer. That was his nickname because of how he went out and fought these wars. Now, what's interesting about the Hammer, and like I mentioned, what's interesting about what the brother mentioned to me, or asked a question after the service, I'm gonna go there real quick. Book of Zechariah, chapter 1. Shalom, Elder Zaquan. Shalom, shalom. Zechariah, chapter 4. I'm sorry, chapter 1. I want to keep saying. Zechariah, chapter 1. And I'm going to start at 18. The reason why I'm going here is because of the Hammer, right? The nickname, the Hammer, or Maccabeus. So this is Zechariah chapter 4 and verse 18. It says, chapter 1. I don't know why I keep saying 4. It's dyslexia, right? Chapter 1, verse 18. Then lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. So now this is the prophet Zacharias being shown a vision from the Lord, right? And in his vision, he's seeing 4 horns. Verse 19, and I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters, right? Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which have lifted up their horn over the land of Judah, to scatter it, right? So based on the context that we're reading, these horns are the heathens. They're different empires, right? There's debates on, which periods of time. Is it the main 4 ones? Is it, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian, the Greeks, the Romans? Or is it a general case of the nations themselves that come and lift themselves up over the nation of Israel, right? To scatter us, to bring us skin us into the 4 corners. I'm in Zechariah chapter 1, 18 on down, right? So now that's what the heathens have done to the nation of Israel. But then it says that they are carpenters, right? 4 horns, and then, the horns are 4, and then the carpenters are 4. Now, when you look it up, these carpenters are in the Hebrew. There used to be a brother, elder to me, actually. I'm saying, brother, he's a brother, but he was an elder when I first came into the truth. His name was Karash, right? Karash. And when you look up Karash, it says it's like someone who's skilled in different things. His skill was, drawing. So a lot of times when we used to go out to camp, the pictures and signs that we had were drawings that he did, right? That was his skill. Then you may have somebody else who's like a skilled person in doing metal work. There was another brother who used to work for Con Ed. Why is his name removed? What's his name? Dang, I can't forget his name. I can see his face. Gotta think about it. Malak Yarum, right? Malak Yarum, right? He was skilled in metals and things like that, right? Banging on certain things and making it and carving in certain things. So he would be like a form of a Karash, right? So now when you look at, sometimes depending on the skill that you are, you use different tools, right? A traditional carpenter, yeah, he may have, like they call it, the carpenter's pants. When you get the carpenter's jeans, they got the little loop on the side. You would put what in there? Like a hammer, right? Take the hammer out and you're doing certain things with it, right? Nailing stuff into the wall or breaking certain things in and so forth and so on. Sometimes with the hammer, or what they call a sledgehammer, you got to go and do what? You got to break down things. You got to destroy, right? So much so that today they come up with a saying, destroy to rebuild, right? But you're going and destroying certain things. And even in doing the destruction, right? Even destroying and taking down things, it's a sort of a skill on how to do that, right? There's an art to it, right? So when you look at these carpenters and the word that's being used, right? These carpenters, or the word here, wasn't to go and like, you know, lay carpet and to like build a nice house. No, these carpenters, their job was to come and get the heathen out of our land, or get the heathen off of our neck, right? And in some cases, you had to go and destroy the heathen, right? With that skill that you have. So you would be like a form of a warrior, soldier, right? That's what these Levites are when you look at it in context, what you're reading right now in the Maccabees. Matthias was out of the families of priests, but they was warriors, they was fighters. They went to go fight, right? Go to hold that, drop that in Zechariah. Go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 21. Ezekiel, chapter 21. Let me show you something real quick. Ezekiel, chapter 21. 21 and 31. This kind of goes into the Hebrew thing that I think a warrior said the Most High's name, right? Trying to understand how you do. This kind of goes to that, right? You take a little step further, you understand words and meanings. It has a different effect on it. So in Ezekiel 21:31, and I will pour out mine indignation upon thee, and I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and deliver thee into the hand of brutish men and skillful to destroy. Right? So right there, that same word, karash, like what's in Ezekiel, for the carpenters that was going to go out there and fray those horns, get them out of there. It's the same word here, karash. And now they're letting it be known that these men are going to be skillful in war, because their purpose is to go to destroy, right? So you would have that. That's like Judas Maccabees, right? He was skillful in destroying or fraying these Greeks out of our doggone land at the time when they was trying to come and destroy us. Matthias is also like that. But the reason why, because his nickname is Maccabees, which is like the hammer. He's that karash to go and destroy these Greeks, right? That's what he would now be doing as we read further on in the chapter, right? So I just wanted to highlight that because his nickname kind of exhibits what he would be doing in the storyline, right? A karash to destroy, right? All right. So that was Zechariah. I just went through, I think, 18 to the end. 1:18 to the end. Did I start at 1 or did I start at 16? I can't remember. 18 to the end, and then Ezekiel 21 and 31 to just link with verse 1 here in First Maccabees 3:1. Bear with me 1 second. So I mentioned, what was that? Nehemiah 9:27. You could also link Judges 2:18, right? How the Lord raises up saviors, deliverers in the time of calamity. This is Judges chapter 2:18. It says, and when the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it repented the Lord because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. Right? Speaking about these nations, but these judges that the Lord raised up will be the same as what we read in Nehemiah 9:27. They would be saviors, right, for the time being, because it just says all the days of the judge. Because after the judge left or the judge died, then calamities came back. Israel probably went off, right? That's why it's going to be different in the time of the ultimate savior, which is Yahushua, because when he comes and deliver or saves or redeems Israel, he's going to now change our hearts and minds so that we will never go off again, and we will never need another to come and deliver us, because we will be delivered, past tense, to never be needing to be delivered again. Right? So that's why the Lord worded it that way. As long as that judge was alive and the Lord was with him, Israel was okay. But after that, then they went back. All right, so now let's go to 1 Maccabees 3:1. And it reads, it says, then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him. And so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel. Right? So the same alliance and allegiance that they gave to Mattathias, who had gained their respect because he went out there and fought a good fight, they now gave that same allegiance to Judas. Right? And they now aligned themselves with him. You see that, during the times of Moses, when Moses transitioned, it went on to Joshua. And then the people now made a pledge to follow Joshua the same way that they followed Moses. Right? You read about that at the end of Deuteronomy and the first chapter in the book of Joshua. Right? So you'll see that happens in certain times. Verse 3. So he gat his people great honor and put on a breastplate as a giant and girt his warlike harness about him. And he made battles, protecting the host with his sword. Right? So this is the beginnings of him, right? Put on a breastplate like a giant, right? So he probably was a regular sized man, but the way he fought and the name that he was going to get, it was as if he was a giant in the earth at that time, right? The same respect Goliath had, who was like a giant at that time, right? The giants, so those who was of tall figures from the Hamites, he got that same name, being just a regular man. His name and his reputation and the way he fought preceded him. It says in verse 4, in his acts, he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey. Right? A lot of times we always reference Genesis 49:9. Read that real quick. Genesis 49:9 to get the contrast of the characteristics of the lion, right? It says in Genesis 49:9, Judah is a lion's whelp. Remember that Judah is supposed to be the head tribe, right? Judah took the position of the head tribe, even though Judah himself was not the eldest son, right? It says, from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he coucheth as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rise him up, right? So in the beginning, Judah is like a lion's whelp, a young, youthful lion that's looking to make a name for himself, right? When you observe and watch, animal channels or planets or whatever, and you're looking at the lions and you see those up and coming lions, they're on the prowl to look to take town territories. And they have to go up against other lions who've been established, right? And they, are aggressive, all right? They want to really go and challenge that person. But then at the end of it, it says, he stooped down, couched as a lion and as an old lion. So when you've now gone over or you passed your prime, right? You're not in your youthful state. You can't go out and defend the pride like you used to. After a while, you give up, right? You give it up to somebody else and you go and you lay down and you just like trying to ride it off into the sunset until your days transition, right? That's what you see with the old lions. After that young lion comes in, that old lion now he's just roaming, just taking what he can until his time's up. That's how Judah was in the last days. At a certain point, it was like an old lion who's past his prime. It was now no fight, no might, no zeal in him, right? That's not Judas. Judas is the young lion, the whelp, That's what that whelp means, right? It's like a young up and coming lion.
Young Simba. Young Simba.
Young Simba, right? He sees everything right before him. So that is, you know, a microcosm of, you know, and Judas is not a Judite, right? He's a Levite, but it's the characteristics that he also exhibits, right? So back in First Maccabees chapter 3, we have verse 5.
I think Dan was considered lion too.
Say again?
I think Dan was compared to a lion too.
Right. I mean, you'll see a lot, even the heathen take the the lion because it's very, you know, I mean, it's the what you observe the lion that does in the wild, with the mane and how it just looks majestic, right? It looks like a lot of people would take that same lion's name or image and put it on certain things. Just the way it walks and it moves, you're like, yo, man, damn lion, the way it looked like the king of the jungle because of the mane and then the bite and the jaws and the eyes and the look and its ferociousness. So yeah, commonly used. So verse 5, it says, for he pursued the wicked and sought them out and burnt up those that vexed his people, just like we read before in Judges, how the Most High will raise them up. All those that vexed his people, they would be the ones to now go and take them down. Verse 6, wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because salvation prospered in his hand, right? So as he began to win more and more battles, where sometimes people would have thought or assumed that he would lose, right? Because of maybe numbers or because of just the name of the nation of Israel. They're not that elite superpower. They're not the Greeks. So when he's going out and fighting wars, like, somebody's gonna take them out. But then it doesn't happen. So from battle to battle to battle to battle, as each battle now goes on, his name increases, and then people begin to fear him, right? When you do something great and it gets widely publicized, people begin to respect you and they begin to now consider you. Even your enemies will respect and consider you, even though they want you dead, moved out of the way, right? But now it says the wicked begin to shrink for fear of him because he might come take them out. Verse 7, he grieved also many kings and made Jacob, Yahweh, glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. Right before this class, we was talking about the 144,000, what that looks like, right? Those men that's going to be reigning with Christ in the kingdom, right? They're going to have a name that's going to proceed forever. Today, we look at Moses and Elijah and all these other men. Their names is already ingrained in the Bible, right? Judas Maccabees is that same way. His name is going to be etched in stone. So one would think, based on what the testimony says here, he's going to be in the kingdom, right? He's in the kingdom. His name is going, that spirit that now was that time he was Judas, it's the same thing that happens throughout the generations. So he's going to be there. He doesn't know who he is today, right? If he's here on the earth, right? He could be in the spirit world, he could be on the earth, but his name is going to stand the test of time, right? We all want to be there. We all want to have that name to be found worthy, where they say, yes, that brother Pequot, you know, he stood through adversity. He had different challenges and circumstances, and he stood 10 toes down, right? He went out there in the midst of people coming and barking and scoffing and everything else. His face was adamant as flint, and he was able to stand it. And I found him worthy. That's beautiful. That's it. Everything else doesn't matter, right? So when he says this, his memorial is blessed forever. His memory is going to be ever ingrained. We're never going to forget. Just like Mary's sister Martha, when she went and anointed Yahushua, right? Yahushua said, wherever the gospel is preached, she got to be spoken of. When we talking about deliverance and salvation, because so what she did to me, for me, she got to be. So Mary to Sister Martha, she gonna have a spot. She's gonna be part of the 1/3, right? She's not the 144, but she'll be a part of the 1/3 for her acts at that time, right? So to have a memorial or memory is great, right? Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 41. Ecclesiasticus chapter 41, and I'm going to start at 12. It says, have regard to thy name, for that shall continue with thee above 1,000 great treasures of gold, right? So consider your reputation, what they say about you, right? Are you doing things out there that's indicative of someone who's carnal, right? Or is it indicative of someone who's worldly? Because that's how they see you. That's what they're going to talk about. Yeah, I always see him out there at that bar grabbing on women, right? He always be grabbing, they be slapping them. You're going to now be looked at as a certain way because that's the characteristics that you're exhibiting. You're always getting slapped up in the bar and start fights and anything. But I do see him out there in the corners. It's like, but that's not a good reputation, right? The scripture says you should not do anything to blame the ministry, right? So it says in the New Testament, don't do anything that causes harm to this ministry by your actions. So it says, have regard to thy name, for that shall continue with thee above 1,000 great treasures of gold. So money or riches does not hold more weight over your name. Verse 13, a good life have but few days, but a good name endureth forever, right? So whether you're here for 33 years, like Yahushua, right? I'm older than he was when he walked the earth. But what he did when he walked the earth supersedes me 10 times over, 20, 30, 100-fold time over, right? So a good life, the time that you have, don't measure that, right? People like to measure, oh, I'm 80 years old, I haven't done this. But what it is that you did, the quality of your actions, right? The intent behind why you even did certain things, that's what the Most High is going to regard in order to now have your memorial last forever. That's your brand. Exactly. Right? What better example to have or to pattern yourself after than Yahushua? And then you have other righteous men as well. But like he said, if you're trying to stamp yourself, yes, make sure your brand doesn't get tarnished, tainted with nonsense. Right? First Peter's, you don't have to go there, but just write down First Peter's, I think it's chapter 4. First Peter's chapter 4. And verse verse 15. I'll just read it. You don't have to go there. First Peter's 4:15. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or as a thief or as an evildoer or as a busybody in other men's matters. Right? Those are characteristics of somebody who's worldly. Right? Don't suffer for doing those things. It says, yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify Yahweh on his behalf. So if you suffer for doing righteous works, right, following after or patterning yourself after the example that Yahushua gave us, and you suffer, then that's good, right? Because what are they going to say? Yeah, I seen that brother out there. He was trying to feed the homeless, and he had these fringes on, had this Bible telling me that I'm not supposed to do. Yeah, I seen him out there laboring out there on the corners, and he was doing it. I seen him online, and I seen him breaking down scriptures and saying that, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be eating that. Now, if people get upset and they start slandering you because you're talking about, you know, the do's and don'ts, but they don't have anything like being a murderer or a busybody, or they can't say those things, that's good, right? Because what they're going to say, like, yo, so what did he do that was so bad? And when they start describing it, you're like, okay. It's like when Yahushua, when they wanted to crucify Yahushua, Pilate was like, well, what did he do? I find no fault in this man. Right? So you want your name to be etched in stone at some point. Right? So you got to consider your ways. All right, so let's go back. First Maccabees 3, I'm at verse 8. All right, Kun.
2 Timothy chapter 2:19.
2 Timothy chapter 2 and 19.
And it says, nevertheless, the foundation of the Most High standeth sure, having his seal. The Lord knoweth them that are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. Which means if we're gonna associate ourselves with the Most High, with Christ, we better make sure that we walk correctly so that we don't tarnish his name. And every time the Most High move away from us, is to protect his name, right, from us when we sin against him. So now when we go out there without the Most High, we're not representing him. Now we're doing our own thing.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 8 and 9. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, and verse 8, it reads, for honorable age is not that which standeth in length of time, nor that which is measured by number of years, but wisdom is the gray hair unto men, and an unspotted life is old age.
Unspotted life, meaning no one can blame you for anything. That's what Paul said. He wanted to present us before the Yahushua blameless, unspotted, right? And then the scripture that I quoted earlier was 2 Corinthians 6 and 3, where it says, giving no offense in anything, that the ministry be not blamed, right? So don't offend to the best of your ability in word or in deed, that no one can come back and blame this ministry of ours that we have, that the Most High and Yahushua has commanded us to uphold. All right, so now we're back in First Maccabees 3 and verse 8. It says, moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them and turning away wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish, right? So you had some people who knew that tomorrow might be their last day, standing up for righteousness, defending our honor, right? Where others might say they care about their life. They got other plans that they want to do, right? All right, you know, if we start eating swine's flesh, I'm still living though. Right? I'm alive, right? I don't want to put myself in jeopardy where I might be taken out, right? Those are not the people that align themselves to Judas. These people were ready. These were men or women who are ready to perish, right? Go to chapter 9 in First Maccabees, chapter 9 and verse 8. First Maccabees 9 and 8. It says, nevertheless, unto them that remained, he said, let us arise and go up against our enemies, if peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they deported him, saying, we shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we return with our brethren and fight against them, for we are but few, right? So he like, look, man, let's go out there and fight. Who knows? We might win. The Most High may give us strength that we might win. Others was like, nah, man, let's just turn back. We live to fight another day. Like, nah, that's why the Most High had it in the law. When you're going out to war, whether those who just got married, those who just got land, or those who were afraid, you leave them home. You leave them there. You don't want that spirit to be there, right? So that's what these guys were saying. Nah, it's only like 400 of us, man. I mean, they got 800 people, but nah, we can't. Let's turn back. Just don't look in our favor. Verse 10. Then Judah said, God forbid that I should do this thing and flee away from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. Right? I don't want to stain my name. I don't want to be looked at as a coward. I ran. Right? So these is testimonies and examples that we look at Judas, who, you know, he should have a Netflix series. You know, the Maccabees should be a Netflix series somewhere that highlights a lot of these great storylines, right? Or Amma, whatever it is, to kind of showcase the real zealousness for righteousness that some of our people had to kind of help exhort us to do the same things, right? Imagine you had a brother like that who's always around you. It's like, yo, man, they're ready to go all out. But then it takes it to the next level when you see that the Most High is rolling with him, right? When you see the Most High is rolling with that man, just like how I think the bar is bringing out when he's at the fight, the angel came down and lifted up Judas in the midst of a battle and protected Judas. And then they was out there fighting for him. You witnessed that? You like, oh, man. Hey, what we got to lose? Especially if the angels is coming and helping. We have nothing to lose. So you have to have that mind state. That's why sometimes when we speak about the last days and the events that's going to happen and what we're going to be required to do, be the Most High's battle axe, the Most High is going to have to change the spirit in some men and even some women in order for them to be able to accomplish or to overcome some of those things that's going to happen in the last days. I mean, we've seen how the Lord can change the heart of a man. He did it with Saul, made him a prophet, right? He wasn't a prophet, but all of a sudden, he said, I'm going to give you another spirit. And he gave him another spirit, and he was out there prophesying. Most High can give you the spirit of might like he gave Samson. It is not wasn't his hair, it's the spirit that the Lord gave him. It's a gift, right? Spiritual power. Boom, put that in you right there, and then all of a sudden, you got a whole different mind, and you out there doing certain things, right? But before then, the Most High is putting us through the ringer as far as for proving ourselves that we'll be worthy for those things, right? You don't want to give the gift to somebody and they abuse it, right? Like certain gifts, the Most High wants to be very judicious with and give it to certain people. So right now, with the little tokens that we have, he said, I'm going to give her this. I'm going to give him that. And I'm going to see what he do with it. If he do that, all right, then I give him. In 2 more years, when all hell break loose, that brother needs to get the spirit to do this to help out all the brothers that's in that area, in that city. He's going to be the one that I'm going to raise up to do that. He's going to be the one that's going to give this spirit to do this, that. You got a whole different, that brother going to get the spirit of speaking in tongues. He's going to be able to know how to hear all different kind of languages and speak all different kind of languages in order to get everything in it. Lord going to do all different kind of things. Right? That's what we read. Right? That in Acts 2nd chapter, right? Gave them cloven tongues so they can speak all different things at that time, just to show you a manifestation of his power. But you got to believe. Sometimes people just read these stories and it just seems like it's just stories that happened back then, man. We talking about right now, 2025. We have to go in 2026. I ain't seen nobody do none of that stuff. Right? So what happens? You start losing faith. You start waning in the spirit. And then you start falling off. Because you expect to have some of these things happening when you want it to happen. Let's wait on the Most High. Be patient. The Lord will do his work. And when it comes, oh man, it's going to be beautiful. Right? You know, I don't like always to say that I told you so moment. But sometimes I like that. I told you so moment. I told you, if you just wait, brother, look. Right? You wait, and then Most High will use you and leverage you. All right, so let's go back. I don't want to ramble too much. We at verse 11. No, we have verse 10. I stopped at verse 10. So verse 10 says, then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together. I'm at Maccabees 3 and 10. First Maccabees 3 and 10. Chaanakah, if I didn't say I'm back. So it says, then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together and a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel. Which thing, when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him. And so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Right? So here came somebody, Apollonius, to get himself a name to go fight against Judas, and he got taken out. Right? Probably was a person of reputation. And Judas took him out, like you read above, started winning many wars. Right? Verse 12. Wherefore Judas took their spoils and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long. Right? Almost reminiscent when David slew Goliath. Right? The sword that Goliath had was taken and put up. Right? And it was times, I think the story talks about David was on a run and went somewhere, and he came back to the priest and asked him for the sword. Right? He still got that sword that put up from Goliath, right? It was put up in the safekeeping. This one, that didn't happen. He took that sword, and that's the sword that he fought with. Imagine you going out there fighting. You have whatever instrument you got, but this guy got some stuff that's all decorated, got all kind of things on it, and then you go kill him, and now his sword laying there. He's like, yo, that's a nice sword, right? He didn't know how to use it. I'm going to use it much better. And he took that, and that's the sword that he went and fought with. Yeah. Nice balance, nice thing, sharp. Got all different kind of engravings on it, gold on it. Got some jewels, that's just nice. I knew it didn't have any heathen stuff on it, right? You ain't want to be going out there with some heathen writings on it or false gods on it. It probably was a vanilla sword with some trimmings on, right? Verse 13. Now when Saron, a prince of the army of Syria, heard say that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and company of faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom, for I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him who despise the king's commandment. Right? So this guy's another one stood up. If I take him down, what name am I going to get? Right? Saron, the Judas slayer. Right? Right? And then everyone is going to be, that's what they're thinking. Man, I want to get me a nice palace over here. Going to have about 18 wives. You start thinking all kind of stuff that comes with being valiant in war, right? Especially from the heathen.
Looks like Judas have to take it down, man.
We're going to see. Right? We're going to see. Verse 15. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him, and to be avenged of the children of Israel. Right? It's funny because it says, and to be avenged of the children of Israel, when they're the ones who came against us. Right? Majority of the times when you look at history, the nations, the heathens, wage wars against other nations or other people to go take their lands. Right? When you look at our history throughout the different empires and ages, the only time that you see when we waged the war is what you see during the time of Joshua, because the Most High told us to go and do it because that land was given to us, right? He said, the people that's in there, they don't deserve it. They got to go, right? This is mine. I created all this. This is mine. Y'all go take. Once we got our land, that was it. It was like, all right, we have rest now. We have peace. The Lord told us that that's their land, that's his land, that's their. He divided to the nations their inheritance. But then the nations, I gotta have it all. Everybody want to have it all when they shouldn't have it all. But that's the spirit that's in them, right? But now you see here, they want to be avenged of the children of Israel. Like that was something that we did. Like we started this. Nah, we didn't start this. Y'all started this. Y'all came in our land and did this to us. Somebody get the door. Baba Kushar. So now verse 16. And when he came near to the going up of Beth Horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, who, when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against great a multitude and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day? So they have been fasting. Sometimes when you are about to go up against,
Oh, Judas.
Right. So this is Judas. They're saying this to Judas as he's going up, right? It was a small company, but these men have been fasting. You fast to kind of draw yourself to the Most High to see if the Lord now will deliver you from certain things. But at the time of their fasting, they're about to go to war, right? So it's like, dang, I don't have that energy that I need. How are we gonna go fight against them? And they got the numbers, right? Verse 18, unto whom Judas answered, it is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and the power of heaven with the power of heaven, it is all one to deliver with a great multitude or a small company. I mean, it's a light thing. It doesn't matter how many people we have. It's a light thing. If the Most High is with you, the Most High is going to deliver them all into your hands, right? Always you have to think about that. On a carnal note, we always look at numbers and think that the numbers matter. Even when the Most High chose us, he says, I didn't choose you because of how many you were, right? He says like the sand of the sea, but he said he didn't choose us because of that, right? That was not the precipice behind us being God's chosen people because we are so many across the world. No, right? It was based on an oath that he made or a covenant that he made with Abraham, period, right? But in this case, we now need to understand that the Lord will always be with us no matter how many we have or how few we have. Go to the book of Judah, chapter 9. Stay right here in the Apocrypha. Judah, chapter 9. And verse 11. Shalom. Ahawab. So Judah 9 and 11 says, for thy power standeth not in multitude, nor thy might in strong men. For thou art a power of the afflicted, and helper of the oppressed, an upholder of the weak, a protector of the forlorn, a savior of them that are without hope, right? So Judith, being a wise sister, she understood this because the examples and the testimonies had preceded her, right? And she learned from that. Go to Isaiah chapter, 1 Samuel chapter 14. First Samuel chapter 14. And verse 6. First Samuel chapter 14 and 6. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to Yahweh to save by many or by few, right? So the numbers don't matter, right? It's only up to the mercy of the Most High. That's why you always want to be in his favor by keeping his will, meaning his commandments and laws. Also, Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8 and verse 31. It says, what shall we then say to these things? If Yahweh be for us, who can be against us? Right? I mean, if the Most High is on your side, it don't matter what they do. Right? It don't matter what they have. We got the Most High. right? Who can use one angel to take down a whole nation of people. Just one angel, right? Just one. You don't need, even though when you read in Revelations, in the last day when Yahushua comes back, it tells you that Yahushua is coming with 100,000 thousands of angels. 100,000 thousand. We're talking millions of angels is coming in that day. It ain't like he need them to go and take down the B-2 bombers and all these other different, drones with different. You don't need all that, right? Yahushua can just come by himself if he so needed it. But it's a monumental day, right? That day is monumental. So the Lord has everybody come, right, to be present. All right, so let's go back. First Maccabees 3, we're at verse 19 now. It says, "For the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength cometh from heaven. They come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us, and our wives and children, and to spoil us," right? So that's what happens. They come with pride, right? You read in Obadiah, pride is what deceives Esau, Edom's heart, right? They trust in the amount of people that they have in the army. They trust in the new technologies and weapons that they have, right? Or they trust in what they've done in the past, right? So that pride now is a blinder to them. They can't see that the Most High is driving them to their own destruction, right? In this case, it was the Greeks that came up with different princes or soldiers to come up and try to take down Judas Maccabees, right? Now, ultimately, when you read later on, Judas does fall in one of the battles, right? He does fall. But again, remembering that Judas and like others are young or small saviors. They're not the savior. Judas was not going to save the nation of Israel from the heathen. No, he was going to be like a judge or a savior at that time for a period of time. But the ultimate savior is coming still shortly. I would say that, right? But for what he's done, he's got himself a good name. So reading on in verse 21 now. First Maccabees 3:21. "But we fight for our lives and our laws," right? Fighting for the lives and laws. Because when we read back in chapter 1, we read about how they forced us to not keep the law, right? And then when you read in 2 Maccabees chapter 6, right, those who tried to keep the law was murdered, circumcised themselves, babies murdered, women murdered, right? You even want to call yourself Yahweh, murdered, right? So that's why he says we fight for our lives and our laws, because we want to keep this agreement, this oath that we made with the Most High going, because that's how we stay alive as a people before the Lord, by keeping his will. Verse 22, "Wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be ye not afraid of them," right? So don't worry about it. If you trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord, right? If you trust in man or you trust in your weapons, you go over there, right? Well, I don't need that type of energy with us, right? So that's why there was a lot of times where you see men had to exhort other men, right? Even when you read in 2 Maccabees, I think it's chapter 15, or was it 16? It's chapter 15, when we get into the day of Judas, right? You read about Judas telling a story about Jeremiah delivering the sword that he was going to go fight with, and now it was used to exhort the people to get them to get their manliness up so that they can go fight. Sometimes you got to exhort the people. You got to tell them about the past. You got to say, come on, man. Who are these guys? These guys ain't got nothing on us. They ain't got nothing on our God, right? So you pump them up, right? There's always that form of encouragement to now boost up the morale so that you can go out there with a good energy of folks behind you or in front of you that have the same like mind intent of taking down your enemy. So back now we in 1 Maccabees 3:23. It says, now as soon as he had left off speaking, he leaped suddenly upon them, and so Sarah and his host was overthrown before him. And they pursued them from the going down of Beth Horon unto the plain, where were slain about 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines. So Sarah came, who wanted to get a name. He was embarrassed because he fled, right? People they put that in the records. Yeah, Sarah went out against a small host of Jews, and they lost, and he fled and ran to the Philistines. The Philistines like, yo, what you doing here? What happened? Yeah, this guy, this Judite, this Jew, Yahweh, not Jew, it's a lot, from the kingdom of Judah. These Jews took us down, right? It's like, what? The Jews? You guys lost to the Jews? These guys, man, losing to the Jews, right? That's the name that's going to be spread, right? But he wanted to get him a name. He got even more. Verse 25, then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them, right? Even these Philistines, though, as they heard Sarah, who had probably a great host, fell to Judas. They probably mocked them, but respected Judas and was like, man, we got to watch out for this guy and those who are with him, right? So now they began to be fearful because they had never lost a battle yet, right? Go to Deuteronomy 2. Deuteronomy 2. And 25. It says, this day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee, right? So at the report of what had happened, they're like, wow, this guy's something, right? Even during the time of Joshua, when the Most High delivered the Egyptians into our hands, destroyed them in the Red Sea, the nations that was round about heard about it, right? Rahab the harlot heard it and was honest in saying, listen, these men, their hearts melt when they heard about what your God did for you in Egypt. They don't want to fight against, they don't want to stand against y'all because of what your God did. So that's what happens. The dread of our name now is put into the nation. And that's what is happening now. So back in 1 Maccabees 3:26, it says, insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of the battles of Judas. So now it just wasn't on a low level, it reached up to the king. And now the king has to now address this matter because everybody's talking. Verse 27, now when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army, right? So I can't roll with just a small group. I got to go get everybody got to be on deck, right? Because he wanted to take them out once and for all, right? It's frustrating to have this subject of someone who you would think that would be paying tribute to you, causing all this commotion, right? Winning all these battles. I can't have that. What does it do to my name? So he had to go take him out, or he thought he was. Verse 28, and he opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year on consignment, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them, right? So you see that even today, sometimes you'll have mercenaries on call, on deck. They pay certain money. You see them in certain movies. They're out living a good life. They're on the beach somewhere, and all of a sudden you see a helicopter come in, or they get a certain text, and it's like, uh-oh, time for me to go, right? Because they're already on consignment. They're paid off, right, to go and do a certain duty. So that's what they would do. They pay off their soldiers for a period of time, even when there's no war. When it's time for war, y'all come coming. Verse 28. Salak 29. It says, nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tributes of the country were small because of the dissension and plague which he had brought upon the land, and taking away the laws which have been of old time. Right? So what happens is when you take away the laws of the Most High that governs the land, the animals, right, the people, and you bring in new laws that's wicked and treacherous and wretched, plague sets in the land. The land doesn't yield its increase, right? So when the land doesn't yield its increase, you can't make the money like you normally would. So what happened? His treasures began to fail. Why? Because he took away the laws of the land of the Israelites. Right? So now he has to go find a way to get some money because it's dried up because the Lord started to plague certain things now. Verse 30, he feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts as to give so liberally as he did before. But he had abounded above the kings that were before him. Right? So this king, Antiochus, he had a lot of wealth. His predecessors didn't amount up to him, right? It's like you hear, Trump today, he's always what? Comparing himself to his predecessors, right? They never had as many, people that came out to witnesses. We've set records. He's always setting a record, right? He's always setting records. This is, indicative of pride. That's all that is. That's just pride.
Huge head. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Even Julius Caesar was jealous of Alexander the Great because he's like 50 years old and he's dealing with all kind of civil stuff, and Alexander the Great was like 33.
Yeah.
When he did all his conquering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 20. Started in the 20s and did all his conquering. I'm like, we want to live up to that.
So much so when you look at specifically Esau, right? Esau takes a cake of them all because and they kind of try to pattern themselves after certain Hamites. But that's why when you go out through the different areas or kingdoms of Esau, you see all these statues of themselves, all these busts of themselves, right? They want to leave a mark where their face is there. When they walk by, it's like, who's that guy, right? And then it's shown in different places. He's shown on a horse. He's done. You don't see Israel's like that. Israel didn't memorialize themselves like that to make statues and busts like what you see happening with Esau or Edom, because that's just pride that they're setting in. They always compare themselves to something or someone else, and they want to leave that mark to stamp themselves, right? And that's what happened. So here in verse 30, we at 31 now, he's now needing to find money to now keep his enterprise going to go now fight against Judas. Verse 31, wherefore being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries and to gather much money, right? So he was going to go in there and do some collecting, tax collecting, but imposing more upon them, right? Imposing more, just coming up with stuff to get the money from the people, right? That's what they did then. It's the same thing that they do now. Verse 32. So he left Lysias, a nobleman and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Right. So he left one of his top men who was also a part of the royal heritage to now oversee the affairs while he leaves to go to Persia to try to steal some money and to bring up or take care of his son while he was gone. 34. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge over all things that he would have done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem. So he left him charge as he went to go get money. You got half my forces, but also I need you to go handle that situation with the Jews. Rear up my son, take care of him, but focus on all the matters of the realm while we're departing. Verse 35, to wit, that he should send an army against them
to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place. Right? What is that? Is that in Psalms? Where it speaks about take away their name and that place. Paraphrasing it.
Psalms 83.
Is it Psalms 83? It's Psalms 83. Yes. That's it. Yes. Psalms 83 and verse 4. Actually, I'm going to start at 2. Psalms 83 and 2. It says, "For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." Right? So it's not only us that they hate, it's also the Most High. And one may say maybe they hate the Most High because he didn't choose them. Who knows? Right? But to get to the Most High, they're coming at us. Right? They're going to say, hey, we're going to go and try to take them out and remove the name of Yasha Allah from even in the earth. Well, that hasn't been easy. Right? That hasn't been easy. So the best thing that they can do now is to take our name for themselves. Right? We can't get rid of the name. We can't get rid of the people. So we're going to become the people. That's what they did. Right? Job 9:24. We're going to become them. Right? And no one's going to think about them being the people. That's the new trick. Right?
And that's why they in Jerusalem they settle. In order for them to get rid of us, they to root us from the land. And then put foreigners in there. Now they become us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see in Jerusalem.
Okay.
People to look at them like it's us.
Mm-hmm.
And to recognize, oh, those are the Jewish people.
Once again, not a new idea. You know, Kush did the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So reading on verse 36, it says, "And that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot." Right? To go and put imposters in the land. Right? He just quoted, it was that 2 Kings 17:24. This happened because of our wickedness at the time, but this is what they did in 2 Kings 17. 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 24.
I can't be them.
Samaritans were not Jews, dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Get the scripture.
Right. So this is a part of good. This is needing to have the Old Testament and understanding the Old Testament to better understand the New Testament. Right. So this is 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24. "And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cathar and from Avar and from Hamath and from Seph Avarim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof." Right? So the Israelites that was in those land, in that region, they had pushed out. They got taken away into captivity. And they put heathens in the land. Right? They put heathens in their place. Now, when you go to Matthew's chapter 10, this is why Yahweh said what he said, because he had nations that was in the land. So Matthew's chapter 10 and verse 5. "These 12 Yahweh or Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not in the way of the Gentiles," or go not into the way of the Gentiles, "and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not." Why? Because of what we just read in 2 Kings.
They put strangers in the land of Samaria. Yahushua knew. So now when you see these Samaritans, these Cushites, heathens, don't go where they dwell. Don't go to their cities. Go only to where the Jews are in these areas, right? So now you assimilate to who you are normally accustomed to, be with based on customs and culture. Go there. Go to our people. Don't go to where they at, right? And that's why Yahushua said that, because of what happened in the past.
And also something that we might underestimate, whenever we're in the land, even in the land of the enemy, if we keep in the laws of the Most High, that empire or that government cannot fully establish itself. And that's why here in America, they have a problem with us following the commandments. That's why they doing anything they can to have us not keep the commandments. Because as long as you have even a few of us keeping the commandments, the empire cannot fully establish. And that's what he did. When he realized that he couldn't function and his powers start to dwindle, he said, you know what? Make sure that those guys, they're not there anymore, and then, strip the land and put foreigners in there. I'll be back. And
Right.
go collect some.
Yep. All right, so let's go back. Now we in First Maccabees 3, and we have 37. So the king took the half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year, and having passed the river Euphrates, he went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Domenes, and Nicanor and Georgius, mighty men of the king's friends. And with them he sent 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judah and to destroy it, as the king commanded. So now he's following the orders. He's raised up, 3 different men who, when you read it, despised Israel, despised the Jews, to go and do what? Take them out. Send them with a big army, right? Verse 40, so they went forth with all their power and came and pitched by Emmaus in the plain country. Say again?
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to picture where they are.
It's the beauty of having those, yes. Yes. Brother asked about where this specifically is.
Usually show us.
Yeah, I'm not as savvy as having the maps, up on the thing. I would have probably had to have gone through it beforehand. I don't want to take the time to go digging through it, but atlases are good tools to have if you want to now, because sometimes it is good to understand proximities of where they are, based on how far distant certain people have to travel, or what is neighboring or bordering them, what threats could also be coming around. So it's good to kind of picture and envision where this is physically at. Verse 41, and the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves. A power also of Syria and of the land of the Philistines joined themselves unto them. So they already made provisions and thinking that, hey, this guy has set up all these men with thousands of soldiers and footmen to go in and take them down. Man, I need somebody to clean my backyard. I need somebody to clean my kitchen, right? I need a slave. We about to go get us some Jews for slaves. So they had their money on deck to come and purchase us from the soldiers, from the heathen, to now bring us into captivity. That's what they was already thinking. Premeditated.
Yeah, it's not too far from Jerusalem. Well, it's above Jerusalem.
North of Jerusalem, closer to Samaria, on that way going up.
Bethany. He says Bethel.
Yeah.
It was custom. It was a day of prayer that you usually go there.
So Emmaus.
Oh, really?
That's why I call it Bethel.
Right. Let me read that real quick. 1 Samuel chapter 7. 1 Samuel chapter 7 in verse 5. And it reads, and Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray for you unto the Lord. And they gathered together to Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted in that day and said, there we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah.
So is Mizpah the same as Emmaus? It's the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the reading?
That was 1 Samuel 7 and 5.
It was 5 and 6.
It's a lot. All right, so we have verse 42, back in 1 Maccabees 3:42. Now, when Judas and his brethren saw that miseries were multiplied and that the forces did encamp themselves in their borders, but they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, then said one to another, let us restore the decayed state of our people, and let us fight for our people and the sanctuary, right? So now they're going to fight for the people and the sanctuary, talking about the temple, right? Hold this, go to 2 Maccabees chapter 15. Because it said, let them repair or restore the decayed estate of the people, right? The morale, all of that. So this is 2 Maccabees 15 and 17. Thus, being well comforted by the words of Judas, which were very good and able to stir them up to valor and to encourage the hearts of the young men, they determined not to pitch camp, but courageously to set upon them and manfully try the matter by conflict, because the city and the sanctuary and the temple were in danger. For the care that they took for their wives and their children, their brethren and kinsfolk, was in least account with them, but the greatest and principal fear was for the holy temple, right? So again, like we read this night, last night, what the temple represented for the nation of Israel, right? We had to learn, and even after here in the Maccabees, because this is during the times of the Greeks, the Romans is up and coming, but when you get to the times of Yahushua, and then now the times after the Yahushua with the apostles, we then begin to learn that the temple was really us, right? But back then, they took very great care for the temple. That's why he says that now they got to go fight for their lives and the sanctuary, where they did the offerings and things in the temple. So that was most account, not even their own wives and their children. That was in least account to the temple. So now going back to 1 Maccabees chapter 3, and we at verse 44. It says, then was the congregation gathered together that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy, compassion, right? So usually, just like you read about in Numbers, the 10th chapter and the 10th verse, that before you went to war, you went and blew up the ram's horn, you sent up prayers to the Most High. It was a testimony, like a memorial, a token between us and the Most High to go and do that so that we can gain his mercy, right? Gain his favor. Go to Philippians chapter 4. Philippians 4 and 6. Con. Native Americans, con. So this is Philippians 4 and 6. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto Yahweh, right? So you always, when you're pleading with the Most High, right, you want to be sincere with your prayers, that the Most High would hear your prayers. And then according to the law, before we went out to war, we blew up the ram's horn. That's Numbers 10 and 10. That's one of the purposes for the shofar. Right? So be careful for nothing, and everything you do, make sure we pray and ask for mercy from the Lord. So now back in 1 Maccabees 3:45. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens or foreigners kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob or Jacob, and the pipe with the heart ceased. Same thing that's going on right now in the land, right? Our people is not going forth. The people who own the land or who's right to the land, we're not going up and down the land. You got other people going in the land, right? And then the land itself is suffering, especially for all the wars and things that's going on in the land now, and for the abominations, the foul acts and things that's happening in the land. Same thing was happening back then, but we were going through harsh trials of trying to stay alive. Verse 46, wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha over against Jerusalem. For in Maspha was the place that they prayed aforetime in Israel. So that's what you read in Isaiah, was that 7 and 5? Right. Maspha, Mizpah. First Samuel, so like 1 Samuel 7 and 5. Right. So that definitely is the same as, because sometimes when you read in the Apocrypha, the New Testament and the Old Testament, the wording changes a bit, right? Like Elijah, Elias. Same thing here with Mizpah and Maspha, where they went to pray. Verse 47. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So now, not only are they in our land, right? Not only are they habitating there, but now they're getting our records and looking to now do what we always read in Job 9:24, right? They're changing the face of the judges thereof to put their likeness in our records, in our book, which they've done. Because now when you go to certain Bibles and you open it up and you flip in the pages, their likeness is in the Bible. Their images are spread throughout different buildings and cathedrals to make it seem as if they're the people of the book.
Movies and TV shows.
Yep.
Greatest story ever told.
Flooded.
Temptation of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Passion of Christ. The Chosen.
Done. Verse 49. They brought also the priest's garments and the first fruits and the tithes, and the Nazarites they stirred up, who had accomplished their days. Right. So you still had certain people who was keeping true to the tradition. Right. You had some who were just talking about this earlier, as far as for some who kept the Nazarite vow. Right. They were still doing it in the midst of all that was going on. Right. Those all came and was assembled and brought back. Right. Remember, because he wants to repair or restore the decayed state of Jerusalem, of our people. It says in 50, then they cried with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them away? For the sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, thou knowest. Right? So, like it tells you in Micah chapter 2, he said, what things they are imagining against us, you know, Most High, because you know the thoughts and the hearts of men. So in Micah 2 and 1, it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Right? So they are devising iniquity and working evil in their beds. Or when they're at rest, they're just conspiring over the dinner table, sitting at the fireplace, drinking wine, and like, yo, how can we go take these guys down? How can we destroy them? right? Give them some disease, give them polio, malaria, right? Trick them in saying that we come and giving them vaccines when it's actually the disease, right? All these types of things. To what? Take out of people. That's what they're worried about, right? They're praying to the Most High. Said Most High, they're trying to take us out. You know what they're thinking. You know what they're conspiring.
Isaiah 1 and 7 as well.
Isaiah 1 and 7.
Isaiah 1 and 7 says, your country is desolate, your cities are burnt with fire, your land strangers devour it in your presence, and it is desolate and overthrown by strangers.
Mm-hmm.
What was yours again?
Micah 2 and 1.
Two also.
No, just one. I mean, I could read two. It's fitting, right? This is Micah 2 and 2. It says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage, right? So, what is it? Everett Stevenson made a comment earlier about same thing, explaining what happened to the Native American Indians, right? They coveted the field, they coveted the lands, right? Took it by violence, took their heritage away from them, right? And now we look and you don't even see them. That's what it talks about, like to make their name no more in remembrance, right? You barely even see them as a people. Now they even make themselves to be the Gadites or the Native American Indians, right? You see them at the powwows. You like, yo, hold on. You guys really Cherokee? Huh? You guys? Yeah, yes. My grandmother, my great grandmother was Cherokee. Damn, how does she prove this? Right? Because she don't look nothing like a Cherokee, right? And they over there getting the benefits of the land. Mm-hmm. What's that movie with Brad Pitt and what's the name?
Was it Native Americans?
Yes.
Legends of the Folk?
No. The one with not Brad Pitt, I'm sorry, Leonardo DiCaprio. And what's the dude that was in Heat?
Oh, I know the movie you're talking about. He was called.
Not Al Pacino, the other guy. What was his name?
De Niro.
De Niro, Robert De Niro, and Leonardo DiCaprio. And that movie that they was in, I remember. I didn't see the movie, but I remember it was a soundbite on the Oscars, the Emmys, one of those, and the guy was highlighting, that the movie was being nominated, but he spoke about how in the movie it uncovered America's history of how they went to go and take the land by violence. But the Killers of the Flower Moon. Yes, that's a good movie to check out. Killers of the Flower Moon, and it showed how they would strategically go and marry into these Gadite or Northern tribe families, and then give them diseases, and then they would die, and then they would inherit the land. Right? They would do all kind of covert things to try to now get the land. Killers of the Flower Moon. That's what it was. Good movie if you get a chance to watch that, with context of understanding how they operated and things came into fruition. So Ella posed, was this Genesis 35 and 10? And Yahweh said unto him, thy name is Jacob, or Yaquab. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. Right? So we are the people of the book of the covenant. All right, so let's go back. What did I leave off? Verse 53. How shall we be able to stand against them, except thou, O power, be our help? Then sounded they with trumpets and cried with a loud voice. Right. So again, 54, sound the trumpet, plead your case before the Most High before you start to go into your enterprise. That's Numbers 10 and 10 for verse 54. And after this, Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, over hundreds, and over 50s, and over 10s, right? So you read about this in Deuteronomy. I think it's Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, the 15th, first chapter, 15th verse, right? Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 15, where it says, so I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, captains over 10s, and officers among your tribes, right? This goes back to, the conversation that Moses had with his father-in-law on how to now go and manage and deal with the nation, right? He had to break them up into different groups and then put heads over the people so that they can go and try to deal with the matters. Verse 56, back in 1 Maccabees chapter 3. But as far as for such as were building houses, or had betrothed wives, or were planting vineyards, or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return every man to his own house according to the law, right? So that's the law that I referenced earlier, that if these different things happen, you just got married, betrothed to a wife, you're planting a vineyard, you just got land, property, and you're kind of cultivated, or you just fearful, right? You doubting, questioning. Y'all got to stay behind, right? That's found in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 5 to 8, right? You got to stay home. Verse 57, so the camp removed and pitched upon the south side of Amias. And Judah said, arm yourselves and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with these nations that are assembled together against us to destroy us and our sanctuary. For it is better for us to die in battle than to behold the calamities of our people and our sanctuary. Nevertheless, as the will of power is in heaven, so let him do. That's kind of reminiscent of when Esther went in to go sing King Ahasuerus. If I die, I die. Right? If that's the Most High's will, then that be that. But we're going to go out manfully. Right? This is one of the things that is different with some of Esau's armies, right? They don't have that type spirit. Their whole goal is, I'm going to try to get there, get back home, right? They ain't trying to die. That's why a lot of times when you see some of these soldiers, when they go to these certain, especially when the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, it was always shoot first at the drop of anything. Because they just like, listen, man, I don't care what. I ain't trying to die out here, man. I'm trying to get back home. Now, I'm not saying that anybody just goes to the war with the purpose of dying, like you just did to martyr yourself, but they don't have something to fight for, right? And a lot of times when they're going out and fighting, what they're going there for, they're not all in agreement, but they're obligated to do it because they've taken an oath, right? They join the service, and that's what you got to do, right? But they're not all backing the purpose of that, so they're not there with confidence, or they're not there with a passion or a purpose or a zeal. They say that they're ready to fight. So anytime they just ratting off, man. Get out, don't shoot it. We'll do that and ask and answer questions later. I'll be back home. I'll be back home. I got my pay. I'm this, and I'm good to go.
They're not even.
Oh no, Nabi, I had to stand up first.
I'm saying, you made me think of you guys remember the Dead Presidents that came out in the 90s?
Go.
We had Lorenz Tate, is a Vietnam vet, struggled to make meet to get back from the war, and you had the thing with Martin Sheen playing the judge, but they got arrested. He said, "I was in World War II, a real war, I might add." And I'm just like, I guess that sentiment probably got worse and worse as we've had wars since World War II, where it's just like you said, it's like mercs, soldiers of fortune. It's just like everyone for himself. not really like fighting for patriotism. It's like it's always a struggle to maintain that patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but these soldiers are not gonna enjoy any spoils when they go to these wars
Mm-hmm.
because they all belong to the government.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I'm just gonna look a paycheck, you know. Gotta take all the spoils, gold, and all that stuff. Oh, you gotta bring that to the government.
Another movie reference, Three Kings. You guys remember Three Kings with Ice Cube, Marky Mark, and I think the third guy. But they were in, I think, Iraq, and they deserted when they found it was like some gold supply.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Hey man, we're gonna get nothing when we get back home. We might as well make it count. Let's desert."
See the comment by Everett Stevenson. I'm gonna pull up a precept for what he said. Amen. Again, Israel means fighter too, and we fight within our minds and heart for words and ideas, right? So that's what, you know, it's a conspiracy and things with Esau, but with us it's different. So this is Second Maccabees. Second Maccabees, if I remember where it's at. Bear with me 1 second. Second Maccabees chapter 8 and 16. The Second Maccabees chapter 8:16, it says, so Maccabeus called his men together unto the number of 6,000 and exhorted them not to be stricken with terror of the enemy. Second Maccabees 8:16. It says, not to be stricken with terror of the enemy, nor to fear the great multitude of the heathen who came wrongfully against them, but to fight manfully. Verse 17. And to see before their eyes the injury that they had unjustly done to the holy place, and the cruel handling of the city, whereof they made a mockery, and also the taking away of the government of their forefathers. For they, said he, trust in their weapons and boldness, but our confidence is in the almighty power, who at a beck can cast down both them that come against us and also all the world, right? So they trust in devices, technology, right? Swords, weapons, where we trust in the Most High, right? Do we have some devices and weapons? Sure, yes, we do, right? David had a slingshot. That's a device. But the trust goes to the Most High, right? That's where you put your most reliance on, not the slingshot, not the device, not the gun, not the sword, not these things can be overcome, but not the Most High. So now, let's go back. Now we're in the 4th chapter of First Maccabees. 1st chapter. First Maccabees, 4th chapter. So it says, then took Georges 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen and removed out of the camp by night, to the end he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. So he thought he was going to do a sneak attack, right? So I'm going to come up in there tonight and I'm going to bum rush up on him. Verse 3, now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army, which was at Emmaus. So now he got word that these guys are trying to come up. So he removed from where he was at and then went to go and fight against the people that was pitched in Emmaus, while as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. Verse 5, in the mean season, meaning in the winter season, right, came Georges by night into the camp of Judas. And when he found no man there, because we just read that they moved, they left, he sought them in the mountains. For said he, these fellows flee from us, right? So he thought that, pride sets in. He's like, oh man, these guys are afraid of us. They all ran. They must have run up in the mountains, right? That's what his thinking was. Verse 6. But as soon as it was day, Judah showed himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor sword to their minds. Right? So when the daytime came, they now presented themselves in the plains. Like, you know how you see in the movies where the armies now show themselves and they just standing there, and they got their other armies and they standing there, and usually they'll have like their captain come out, and then their captain come out and they have a little talk and they go back, and then well, this wasn't like that, right? They showed themselves in the plains that they was ready to fight, and they looked, it was like, oh, there you go. Get yourselves together, man. Get yourselves together. It's about to be on, right?
This is where we fight.
Mm-hmm.
They-
But like we said earlier, here it says, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds, right? Meaning that's not where their trust or their reliance was at. It was with the Most High. They had swords, they had weapons, but that's not what they trusted in, right? As we read down, it's going to show, it's going to tell us. So verse 7, and they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen, and these were expert of war, right? So when they kind of took an assessment of what they were seeing, it's like, yo, they came out with the best of the best out there, right? They got some stuff, man, right? But so what, right? But so what? We got the best. We got the Most High. We got the angels behind us, right? That's what you got to also. Somebody find me. I think it's either Elijah. I can't remember if it's with Elijah or Elias, where he, huh? Yes, that's the one. Find me that if you can, Bible Kushak. So reading on in verse 8, it said, then said Judah to the men that were with him, fear ye not their multitude, neither be ye afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea, when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. Now therefore, let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord would have mercy upon us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before our face this day, that so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel, right? So again, we're exhorting the people to consider what the Most High has done for us in the past. He used a reference with Egypt and Pharaoh and how he delivered us from a mighty host then, right? So the Lord has testimonies that he usually is always there. It's just on how much confidence and faith we have with the Lord, right? You find that precept?
Yeah. 2 Kings verse 16.
2 Kings 6 and 16.
And he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them.
Right, because the servant was seeing the army just like how these men were seeing the army. And they were like, yo, it's way more them than us. Like, how are we gonna be able to withstand that? And the prophet said, listen, it's way more with us than with them. But at that time, all he could see was that the few men that they had and the host that was before him. Read.
Verse 17. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha.
Right. So now the servant, Elisha, had to go pray to the Most High that he would give him the ability to see the angels and the spirits that was all around the mountains, right? To see all of that. And what happened? Now he was going to be able to see. So imagine this, man. Elisha, right? This is why sometimes when I talk about, getting spiritual gifts, right? You got to have a certain temperament to receive certain spiritual gifts, right? You got to have a certain decorum to be able to have and to maintain and not go buck wild and go crazy with it. The Most High put the spirit on Elisha where he was able to see the angels. Like there's angels always about, because the angels are also there recording the things that's going on with you, right? They keep a record and track of the things you say and the things you do and what happened. All that's going down. But in this case, just to see the angels coming and going, imagine that as a man of the Lord and you just seeing them. Or even for it to be just that moment where now they're coming against you to try to overthrow you, but the Most High has already sent you help. And there they are right there. And they just waiting for these guys to go and make a move. Bust a move. Right? And they're going to pounce right on them. They don't even know where it's going to come from. They're going to be charging this way. And from the backside, they're going to be getting taken out. Right? And they're not even going to be able, they're not going to see what's taking them out. Right? And you're just slicing and dicing. But to be able to see that, man, that's a heavy zone. Right? That's a heavy zone. Imagine you walking down the street and you in the midst of peril, and all of a sudden you walk and you see an angel just posted up, and the angel like, you know, do a motion like, you know how sometimes you walk by a brother, you like, you give a head nod like, what's up? Right? You walking down, the angel standing there like, you like, oh snap, Most High sent me a helper. Oh, I'm good now. I ain't got to worry about nothing. Right? But I'm not gonna act out of character. I'm not, you know, because sometimes when you're the younger brother and you in the midst of, you know, an environment, and then big brother come, the younger brother start wilding out. Now you start acting all extra, right? Now you want to start popping off at the mouth. No, you're not going to do that when you got the angel there. You're going to still stay composed. You're still going to be meek. You're still going to be humble. You're just going to go about your business, right? That's why the nurturing of us in these last days, with going through all emotions that we go through in a day-to-day, help us build the character so that when the Most High does deliver a certain spiritual gift to you, you know how to handle it. You know what to deal with, right? Sometimes people be praying, I see your hand, people be praying for cars, and I need this, and I need that. But when they get it, they can't handle it, right? Because they haven't matured enough to receive certain things. So you got to mature, or we have to mature before that time comes when the Most High starts delivering certain things. And there's going to be experiences and circumstances that the Lord is going to allow Satan to test us with to help build and foster those spiritual, those fruits of the spirit, I should say. Kahanabiyah.
Yeah, so we used to hear if you're young, acting like you ain't used to nothing. That's what they used to say.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, you know, just had access all of a sudden. All extra. They got black.
So let's read on. I'm at verse 13. No, 12.
What chapter?
I'm in First Maccabees 4. That's our base.
13.
I'm at 12. It says, then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against them. Wherefore they went out of the camp to battle, but they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets, right? Numbers 10 and 10, right? You go to war, you got to sound that trumpet. You sound your trumpet over your feast days and Sabbath days, but even when you're going out to war, sound the trumpet. Verse 14. So they joined battle, and the heathen, being discomfited, fled into the plain. Howbeit, all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword. So they got all these guys with Georges going out to fight. As soon as they get into the fight, like we read earlier, the dread get in, and they start, like, they half going out there to fight because they know it's Judas. So then you get in there, and then once you see the first guy drop, it's like, I'm out of here. So everybody start running. And you know that saying, that the way that saying goes, I ain't got to be the fastest. I just got to be faster than you. So now Jonas is running, and it said the hindmost of them was getting slain. Those who's in the rear is getting sliced and diced, and as they chasing them. Those that's up front, they like, man, I'm back. Or they riding on horseback or whatever, but they fleeing. They all are now escaping, which the predecessors also did. What?
Also, you got to see that being that we know we had help, Judas know they had help, and they even see evidence of it. They still take steps to fight, right? Regardless of anything. They didn't just sit there. Now you see how that And they see they got help. That even motivate them to even fight, more, to defend themselves.
Okay.
Not like the Christians say, you're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna sit there and hope on the Most High.
Yeah.
So it says, for they pursued them unto Gazara and unto the plains of Idumea and Azotus and Jamnia, so that they were slain of them upon 3,000 men. Right? So they fled into, I see people running like, yo, don't follow me, go your own way. Well, some went into Gazara, some went into the plain of Idumea, Azotus, Jamnia, and he still was getting taken out.
City.
That's like really Open 300 movie. It said, man in the back, yo, forward. Those in the front, yo, back. And they read it from the 300.
Go ahead.
From city to city, we fight.
Mm-hmm. Verse 16. This done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, be not greedy of the spoils, inasmuch as there is a battle before us. Right? So usually a lot of times when you win a battle, the spoils is left, but people encamp that in their tents. You'll find food, victuals, you'll find treasures, silver and gold, because just like we read in the previous chapter, Antiochus would do what? He would pay them off, right? So they would pay them off with silver and gold, and they would travel with their silver and gold. So now after they got destroyed and they left, they would leave their victuals and their provisions and their treasures there, and you would go and take it. But now in this case, Judas was like, look, all of them ain't accounted for. So don't go in there and be greedy and start wanting to take time to go take the spoils and let your guard down. It's still a battle to be won, right? It says, verse 18, and Georgius and his hosts are here by us in the mountains, but stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them, and after this you may boldly take their spoils. So don't lose focus and go there. They somewhere around here, man. We got to be on guard. We need men out there on their posts. We need people on different watches. After this is done, then y'all come back and take the spoils. Verse 20, who when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done, when therefore they perceived these things, they were so afraid. And seeing also the host of Judas in the plain ready to fight, they fled everyone in the land of strangers, right? So those who was remaining, Judas was on point. They watching. So don't let your guard down. But when they saw that they were still ready to fight after they had chased and killed 3,000, that they were still ready and present, and he's like, man, they start burning our tents. These guys ain't probably lose one man. Nah, man. We be out of here. And they all fled. They all left and bounced. Verse 23. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, when they got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches, right? So after they fled, then they came back and got the treasures, right? The silk was expensive fabric. The purple of the sea, right? The dye that came from, so, there's purposes for everything, right? So when you go into the sea, like certain clams and shells, they have certain things in it, the dye that you would use to color your garment, especially the royal garment. That purple dye is what you use to color your material, right? Only back then, only kings and people in the royal cabinet wore those attire. Today, anybody can go wear purple. Right? Anybody can just go to a store and just buy some purple. Back then, it was a hot commodity to acquire the dye that was used to make those garments. So they took all of that, right? They had all that to themselves after winning another victory. Verse 24, and this they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised Yahweh in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endureth forever, right? Psalm 137. You read that chapter, every verse ends with, well, I think almost all of them end with, and his mercy endureth forever. 136, what I say, 136? Yeah, 136, the water, right? So that's what they did, right? They gave the glory to the Most High, right? They ain't just go out there and say, yo, man, we won this. No, that's how Esau them think. Most High delivered us from this battle. So we're going to go give the praise and the glory to the Father. What is that? 1 Corinthians, I think it's chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 31. Whithersoever, it says, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of Yahweh. Right? So whatever food, whatever drink, whatever enterprise or thing that you're doing out there, you're starting a business, you accomplish something, you get a glory to the Most High. You won a battle, you overcame an obstacle, you get a glory to the Most High. Right? The water Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shah for getting me through this thing, or for giving me the opportunity to take that, to excel and get that position. Right? That keeps you grounded, that keeps you humble. Right? So that pride don't set in and you think that you did all of this when it's the Most High. So reading on in verse 25, thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. It says, now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened. Right? So everybody didn't get killed. Some made it out and got back to the castle, back to the headquarters. Right? Yo, Judas ain't no joke, man. He got killed by a lot of people, man. We had everything and we ain't had nothing for him. Right? They're doing all the telling back and forth. So he's hearing a report. Verse 27, who when he heard thereof was confounded and discouraged, because none of such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass. Right? So he probably sent them out thinking that they was easily going to win this battle. And now they come back and tell him everything that happened. He's like, what? What are you talking about? He did what? Well, how many people? What happened to such and such? What happened to George? Oh, he fled and he's over in the Philistine land. And now he's perplexed. And now he has to worry because what the king left him in charge to do, he's not accomplishing. Right? So now he's going to be deemed as not being fit to hold that position. Right? So he has a problem on his hands. Verse 28, the next year, therefore, following Lysias, gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot and 5,000 horsemen that he might subdue them. So they came in unto Idumea and pitched their tents in Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. Right? So he has 70,000, right? 70 is 60,000 men, and Judas has 10. So he's outnumbered 6-1, right? Verse 30, and when he saw the mighty army, he prayed and said, blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the mighty men by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Right? So when you go into the book of Samuel's and you read about the different wars that they was able to accomplish, Judas recognized that even though David was a mighty man, he had mighty men under him. It was him that allowed David to win those battles. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fail away, or to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. Right? So give us the power and might that we can go take them out. Right? Power our sword, that when I strike, when I lift my hand and I go like that, take down 4 at one time. Right?
So who say this?
This is Judas. Right.
Okay.
So now we have verse, let's stop that, 34. So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now, when Lysias saw his armies put to flight, and the manliness of Judas' soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. So 5,000 of the men got got slain, right? Men started running. So then he now had to regroup, right? This is looking bad. So then he went into another land, started hiring more people or getting more strangers to come back and fight against Judas and the Israelites at that time. So now while he's going into another land, Judas is going to look at an opportunity for himself to also regroup. Verse 36. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies. Oh, Salah.
No, so like Judas and the men are in fighting spirit, and in the conquering already. So these other guys are like, we don't have that confidence, So we gotta try to regroup. But Judas and his men is like, we're in that spirit already.
Yep. Verse 36. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Right? So this is where Chaanakah comes from. That word dedicate, Chaanakah. While they scared, while they regrouping, let's go handle this matter at hand. Because they also, like we read before, their care was for their lives and for the sanctuary. Right? So now they got to go and cleanse and rededicate the sanctuary. Because it was already dedicated. Right? It was already dedicated when we read it last night during the histories of the temple. Right? Now that they've come in and defiled it, now they have to go cleanse and rededicate it back to the Lord. Verse 37. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into the Mount Sion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate and the altar profane and the gates burnt up and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest or in one of the mountains, and the priest's chambers pulled down. So like he read in Isaiah 1:7, where it was like their land is desolate. It's like walking. You ever go through a neighborhood and you see somebody's property and they just don't take care of it. And it's just been vacant for a long period of time. And you start seeing in the concrete, the grass is, the things is coming up from between the concrete. You're like, yo, this just look nasty, man. Ain't nobody taking care of nothing, right? That's what happened in Jerusalem. Because these heathen that's in the land, they don't care about that, right? They didn't care about the upkeep and keeping things pristine because it now was a reflection and representation of Israel with the Most High. They just let things just go to waste, right? So now they got to come in and repair all of this. But they're seeing this, and it's a sore sight, right? Verse 39, they rent their clothes and make great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven, right? Because our place was in decay. It was in ruin. You got the heathens running around here. You got some people in towers and in certain areas still going around here, desecrating, defiling. But now when you take a look at the sanctuary, the temple, and the courts of the sanctuary, it just looked bad, man. It looked bad, right? Because you would look at that and think it's a reflection of us as a people, right? Maybe that's why the Most High is doing all this. Look at this. We got to get this thing cleaned up. We got to get it back. We got to start offering sacrifices again, right? That's sometimes the thinking. Verse 41, then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So that main army that they had, that had fled, that had gone into other countries to go regroup, they still out there doing what they do. But you still had heathens that's there in the land, right? So he said, listen, you guys, get 100 men or whatever, go take care of those guys that's over there, right? Yeah, y'all go over there to the next town over and get rid of those guys, man. Wipe them out. And we're going to handle the affairs over here, right? So that's being multitasking, having people do this and that, and folks is going to different places. Verse 42. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleanse the sanctuary and bear out the foul stones into an unclean place. And as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offering, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down. Right? So now you got men that's blameless, who is all about the law. They know what Leviticus said. They know what initially Moses came off the mountain said with the law. They know what we had to get back with Deuteronomy. They know the testimonies. These guys is left and right, back and forth. Y'all got to go deal with that. So now when they get there and they see the sanctuary defiled, all right, you get the abomination of desolation out of here. Get that out of here and go take it to some place far out. I don't care where you get it out of here. Now you come back and you look at the normal vessels that's there. It's all defiled now. Imagine you went in there and you seeing blood from the sacrifices and things that's there. And now you like, is that swine's blood? Is that what the heck? It's just all kind of stuff all over the place. Right? So now you got to say, you know what? Even though that's what our kings had now put in there, Ezra and Zerubbabel and them rededicated, these is stuff that we put in here, it's defiled. I don't want this to be a reproach on us. We got to get rid of that too. Get that out too. And we'll figure out what we need to do with that. But for right now, it all got to go. Right?
You gotta see the same spirit that Yahushua had when you went in the temple and flipped the tables.
Yep.
And the zeal that he had, you see that reflected on Judas the same way. But you see the same spirit, the same pattern repeated.
Right.
Right. When you did it in the spirit the most time.
Right. So, you know, you don't want to take no chances. So you know what? Just get it out. Verse 45 again, it says, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it, wherefore they pulled it down, and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Right? So they put it up in the mountain somewhere. These was good stones at one point, but now I don't know what we should do. Right? Because these are supposed to be stones that's not supposed to be hewn, meaning no tool supposed to be chiseling or banging upon it. But it's a foul. So, all right, let's just put up in the mountain. Somebody else, a prophet, the Most High, or a seer is going to come and give them instruction on word and tell us what to do with that. If we just get rid of it, roll it in the ocean, whatever, right? But we don't know right now. So we're going to leave it at bay. And I'll be out.
It's an excellent example of showing fear of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's not like, oh my God, most of them can, it's just like that respect and just observing the law, saying, okay, we got to do this. Right.
Right. Exactly. Attention to detail and being very, very specific with how you want to please the Most High, right? Nothing to chance. So we have verse 47 now. First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 47. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, right? So they took whole stones according to the law. As I just mentioned, the stones that was going to be used to now purpose the altar had to be stones that did not or were not hewn, meaning had someone chisel or had some device to them. It just had to be in its natural state where it was found. Right? You read about that in Deuteronomy 27, 5 and 6. Right? We read it real quick. Deuteronomy 27, chapter 5, verse 5. It says, and there shalt thou build an altar unto the Lord thy power, or thy God, an altar of stones. Thou shalt not lift up any iron tool upon them. Thou shalt build the altar of the Lord thy power of a whole stone, and thou shalt offer burnt offerings thereon unto the Lord thy power. Right? So that's how it had to be constructed. So when they say it had to be done according to the law like the former, that's what they're saying. Today, you got all different kind of machines. They make all these nice cuts and things, and you look at it like, yo, that's a nice altar, right? Somebody like, yo, it's beautiful. What, 3D printing, whatever, all kind of things. But a man of the law, right, like how Judas and them said, go get someone blameless in conversation who knows the law, will look at that thing and be like, oh, no, that's terrible. Get that out of here. Everybody else like, yo, you're bugging. That thing look beautiful. Not according to the law. That is terrible. Get that out of here, right? So making sure that you had someone who understood the purpose of the Lord is important, right? It says, verse 40, back in Maccabees now, we have verse 48. And made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and hallowed the court, or sanctified the courts, right? Because just like we was reading, we were discussing it earlier about, what was going on with the hallowed bread. There's certain things that had to be dedicated, certain things that were separated for certain purposes, certain offices, right? So they had to go and do all of that again, but cleanse those courts and cleanse the sanctuary. It says, verse 49, they made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offering and of incense and the table, right? So it says once they came in, they made another candlestick. So I referenced it last night as far as for in the Talmud, they now give this fictitious story about the oil burning for so many, like they only had one bit of oil for one day, but it burned for the 8 days. And then that's when they came with the 8-branch candlestick with the slave in the middle, right? The one in the middle, which gives you the 9 total, right? Go to 2 scriptures. First, go to Titus chapter 1 in the Bible. Titus chapter 1. Titus chapter 1. And verse 14. So Titus 1 and 14 says, not giving heed to Jewish fables and the commandments of men that turn from the truth. Because this story that's found in the Talmud turns from the truth, right? Because the truth says this. Go to Exodus chapter 25. Go to Exodus chapter 25. Exodus 25 and verse 31. It says, and thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold. That's what we're reading about. They just brought in a new candlestick. Of beaten work shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knops, and his flowers shall be of the same. So the shaft is what's in the middle, right? And then the branches are what comes out of the sides. 3 bowls made like unto almonds with the knop and flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch with a knop and a flower. So in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick, right? So you have one branch, one candlestick with the branches, 3 on opposite side. That's where you get the 7 candlestick menorah, right? That's what's in the law, right? That's what's described. These fables, made up stories, right, don't align with what the truth says, right? Doesn't align with the law. So you'll look at it on TV. You go to the supermarkets, you may go out and they're saying, yeah, they're celebrating Hanukkah. They're celebrating Hanukkah. And they got the dreidels and all these different things. And you see that menorah. You're looking at that and you're like, oh, yeah, it's Jewish. It is Jewish. It's not the candlestick of the Jews. It's a difference, right? We follow it as it is written. Thus saith the Lord.
Then you get the Kwanzaa business. Where they got a candlestick, they actually have 7.
Yes, right. And then now they change the purpose into it being like a Hamitic custom, right? It's a Hamitic custom that goes back to Africa, and that just came up in the 70s. Where was that at throughout antiquity? Like, when did that happen? All it is a carbon copy of what we have in tradition in the Bible, right? They just took the same candlestick and then repurposed it for something else, put a new label on it, right? That's why it says, don't take heed to these fables, made up stories. All right, so let's go back. We're almost done, down the stretch. So we had now First Maccabees 4 and 50. It says, and upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table. There it is, those loaves, right? And spread out the veils, and furnished all the works which they had begun to make. So when it's talking about cleansing the temple, it's just not the altar, it's everything that's in the temple. The veils, the curtains, all that had to be redone. Everything got defiled. Remember, they was having harlotry happening in the temple. You got prostitutes and whores doing their business all in there. People killing doggone swine flesh over here. And all kind of madness going on. So it had to be a complete overhaul, right? Like you said, Navia, you don't want to take anything to chance, right? So you want to be very particular of cleansing the whole court, everything. Verse 52. Now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu or Kislu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they had made. Verse 54, look at what time and what day the heathen profaned it, even in that was it dedicated with songs and citherns and harps and cymbals. Why? Because when you go back to chapter 1 and verse 54, it says, now the 15th day of the month Kislu in the 145th year set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judea on every side. So now this was the beginning of when they began to now desecrate it. Jump down to 59. It says, now the 5 and 20th day of the month did they sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Yahweh, right? Or upon the altar of the power. So it's letting us know that on the 25th day, during that time, and now you go a few years forward, on the 25th day of the same month, it was rededicated, right? It was rededicated to the Most High, cleansed, and now we've restored it, right? That's why it says, look at what day, right? So the anniversary of what they did then, we made it now more righteous as a memorial for us to keep and remember. Verse 55, back in 1 Maccabees 4. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the power of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrifice the sacrifice of deliverance and praise, right? So now folks, kind of was going through emotions, right? Fell on their face, praised the Most High, was thankful that we now reclaimed the sanctuary, cleansed it. We was able to now begin to go start having the offerings come in and sacrificing on the altar, and things now was repaired, right? Verse 57. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed. 57. Chapter 4. Let me read it again. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them. Because remember, when we read earlier, the doors there was some things that had no doors. Doors was hanging off. So they had to go get new doors, right? This is crazy. Verse 58. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away, right? So now once you was able to take a step back and look at what it looked like when you first came in and now see it the way it is now, that was a beautiful thing. Verse 59. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel, it's a lot. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness. Right? So now we're 8 days past that. Right? We're 8 days from the 25th day. We're keeping the closing. We're on the 8th day, keeping the last day as a ceremony, right? So, like when we read when King Solomon first dedicated it, he held a feast for 2 weeks, but it wasn't a memorial, right? When they dedicated it at that time. And then Zerubbabel and them dedicated it, and they had a thing, but it wasn't a memorial. Now it's being kept as a memorial on that same day from year to year for the space of 8 days, right? And these 8 days, it wasn't a Sabbath on every day, because Kahanavi, y'all read it last week. When you read in 2 Maccabees, the 10th chapter, it said they kept it like the Feast of Tabernacles, where the first day and the last day was a Sabbath. And then they would also have different willows of the brook and different things that was also decorated on different houses and things as well at that time. So now verse 60. At that time also they builded up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had done before. So not only did they fortify and rededicate the sanctuary and the courts, but they also did the walls around the city to fortify them for the heathen now coming up. They would have a defense to be able to fight against them, right? Because certain things probably got compromised, right? In the other battles and wars, especially because the heathen was there. Verse 61, and they set there a garrison to keep it and fortify Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea, right? Now, what is beautiful about that is because we know that the fight that they had was against the Greeks. And now, as they are getting toward the end of this chapter, it lets you know that these Greeks are Idumeans, right? So then you can start connecting the dots. Who's who in the land, right? So you got Greeks that's being called Idumeans. So who are the Idumeans? Oh, the Idumeans are the people of Edom. So the people of Edom are, right? That's how you got to start putting things together, right? Because you just look at this and you think it's fictitious. But no, the Greeks are actual people. Alexander is in history, right? So his people were being referred to as the Idumeans, right? Modern day names. And now we have the biblical names that most people don't see. Now you can start saying, oh, they're the Idumean, but they're the people of Edom. So you're trying to tell me that people that God hates are those people? Why? Right? And then you start putting all the sauce together, right? Put it all together, and it starts to come clear. All right. I think we also, and then I'm gonna go to St. John chapter 10. Before we go to St. John chapter 10, give Judas Maccabees and those men an applause for standing up for righteousness. I know their memorial is set, but man, that was a beautiful thing for them to do. The Lord put the spirit on that Savior to rise up and to defend Israel. Beautiful. Inspiring. So this is St. John chapter 10 and verse 22. So now we read the history that's found in the Apocrypha. This history, because when you look at the gospel is from the time of the Romans. The Romans succeeded the Greeks. The Greek history is found in the Apocrypha, what we just read. We just read the history pertaining to Chaanakah, or the dedication, right? So now Judas and those men at that time says from year to year, you have to keep this feast. So now when we come to John in the Gospel, chapter 10, verse 22, it says, and it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter, right? So we align this whole thing up with what we just read, because it talks about it being in the mean season or in the cold winter season when these events transpired. And it says that what? It was the feast of the dedication. When did that happen? With Judas Maccabees. We just read that they said to keep this a feast. So what happened? Verse 22. And Yahushua walked in the temple on Solomon's porch. So Christ is keeping that ordinance himself, right? When you read it without the Apocrypha, you don't know about the history about the Feast of the Dedication. Solomon never ordained it. Zerubbabel never ordained it. So why are they mentioning a feast in the gospel? Oh, because it was found in the Apocrypha. It's found in the Maccabees, right? We read about Judas and those great men that did those things, right? And now we see why that's referenced in there. So you give, all praise for the Most High to reveal these things, to open up our minds, to understand the totality of the Most High's history and his word. All right. That's the beauty of precept upon precept, right? And going and searching of our forefathers to understand what came before. All right. So, with that, we're going to conclude tonight's closing service with the second half and other precepts. Most High as well, everyone enjoyed revisiting the storyline for the dedication with the plights of the Maccabees and what they did for our nation. Any questions, make sure you write them down, bring them to the classes. If anybody likes what they saw, what they heard from tonight, and you want to give a donation to keeping this truth going, you want to now give your offering for to the Most High to be thankful for what he's allowed us to continue doing. As always, we have the information here. Make sure you can either jot it down or just revisit it when it comes back. So we have different means. You can write a check or money order to what's on the marquee, Hayash Rala Kanaz, written just as you see it there, with that address, 3826B, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, PA, 19140. And with everything going technological, you can also do it digital, or you can do it through PayPal, paypal.me/HYK12, right? Or you can do it through Zelle, 646-620-7378, all right? For those who want to continue fellowshipping with us, who like what they hear, us going through the deepness of the law, the testimonies, the prophecies, fruits of the Spirit, right? The Gospels, all of these. If you want to come and fellowship with us and break bread, we invite you to come to our classes on Tuesdays and Friday nights, 7 to 10, right? We have a teleconference line for those who can only dial in. You can dial the number that's on the marquee, 667-770-1085. And there's a PIN code 521455, right? That's if you want to dial in teleconference. If you want to join us on Zoom, where we can see one another, there's a URL that you put into your phone or your computer, profitabletalkswithan.s.com. profitabletalkswithan.s.com. And we encourage we encourage people to use that platform if you can. First, for the newcomers, come online, turn on your camera, whether it's on your phone or your computer, so that we can see who we're fellowshipping with, because there's certain provisions that we talked about in the previous classes as far as for who we need to know who you are, right? Because the law dictates that, the Bible dictates that, God dictates that. We need to know who is who, so we know how to deal with certain things, right? Who's a Benjamite, who's a Judite, right? Who's a Levite, right? Who's a heathen, who's an Edomite, who's a Hamite, who's an Elamite. Like, we need to know all these things because we need to follow the word of the Most High. So we ask you to come online, show your face, break bread, let us know who you are, where you're from, and then, entertain different questions and get into the breath of the Holy Spirit found in the Bible. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Power, Yahweh in Hebrew. That's his name. I know in the Bible you read Jehovah, but the Hebrew name, his name, not his title, his name, Yahweh, meaning he is. We want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto him. And then as well, our Lord and Savior, Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, or the anointed Savior, right? In today's song, we say Jesus, but his Hebrew name is Yahweh Shai, right? And we say Hamashiach, which is the anointed before it, right? So for those who have hung in with us, the water for hanging in there. They can catch all the comments. But Osai as well, I see Aldo's on. He was able to adjudicate certain things. So with that, we'll say Shalom, Chaanakah, Chaanakah. Happy Feast of Dedication. This is the closing. Tomorrow night at sundown. On Sunday, it ends. And then we're back to our normal scheduled program. So tomorrow during the day, it is still the feast. It is still a Sabbath, right? It's still a Sabbath. So we're not, liable for our own pleasures and things to do until the sun sets. All right. So again, Shalom, and stay tuned for the closing prayers. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Tawara Aman. La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha'Ella. English translation. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. A moderate upon you, all Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem for the closing prayers. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Maika Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemaiah, Barak, Repah, Magun, Wahakaziyak, Banya, Yasha'Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'ai, Rabium, Payana, Rabium, Sabalanwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Hagana, Roxanaya, Wasalat, Kal, Katayamnawa, Lahaakim, Waakua, Wayasha'Allah, Zamyad, Waiwalam, Bahashem, Yahawashai, the water, Aman. English translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Blessing for the food. Yahweh, Gadawal, Bahashem, Adawanya, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Barak, Ma'akal, Yanawa, Shatayawa, Yanawa, Yayan, Yanawa, Lakam, Yanawa, Shakarai,
Shakarah, Rayanawa, Zakah, Chaanakah, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, Aman. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabat Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Achad. In translation, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books or schools. In Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. With that, again, we'll say Shalom and happy feast of dedication, the last day. Shalom, Israel. Enjoy the rest of the day.